Well, that's not what I was expecting. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. It's nighttime, but more importantly, it's week 24, and we are going to get started on working on the interior of the viaduct entrance. Now, up until last week, that was pretty much impossible. The building was basically glued down to the base, and it was smack dab against the central tower, so there's pretty much no way of getting into it. But with the help of a little bit of magic, it's removable. If you want to find out a little bit about how I did that, watch last week's video, and if you have, great, you've seen it. We've got Hogwarts Legacy up there in the background. I was taking a quick look, getting some inspiration on what I might want to do with this, and suffice to say, I am not going to go down the route of what Hogwarts Legacy wants this to be. So let me explain. This is the view of the main foyer of the viaduct entrance. That's the door out to the bridge. That one right there. And as soon as you enter, it's just a big open space with some staircases. And more importantly, if I were to run down these stairs, doing this all one-handed, guys. Then we're gonna rotate. You guys can just see that the entire building is just one big staircase. So we're not gonna do that. And while at first glance this might seem like the perfect fit for this building, because of course this is what it is, it's a doorway that leads down into the heart of the castle where the library and the central tower is. But I've got a list a mile long of all the interiors I want to pack into my Hogwarts, and I cannot afford the space to build basically a big staircase tower, because we've already got one of those. That being said, architecturally this thing is a work of art, and I would be ashamed if I didn't steal a few of these amazing ideas and just excellent design work. I'm kind of flattering them here, but it's a pretty cool interior. So what does that mean that we will do with this space? Frankly, I'm not sure. But here's a look at the back. I have made this kind of interesting, I think, looking archway, just to make it a little bit more interesting than just a flat kind of T of the walls. You can see a little bit of the view in the interior. You can see how, if I angle the camera down here, it's an amazing shot. It's probably on par with looking down the Great Hall. So obviously, something impressive needs to be in here. That being said, it is really only this central space that is of any use. While the sides do have 6 bricks to play with, I don't really want to be messing with tearing these things apart and having the walls completely flap open, because you're not really going to be able to see all that much. So the main focus is on this space right here, which is a 16 by 16 plate. So what do I have to work with? I have the front door, obviously, so that needs to be used in some way. It wouldn't make sense if that just opens in on a bathroom. And we have the other door here for the side, and that must lead somewhere as well. So I don't have to stick with these as if they're set in stone, but it is a good sort of just guidance to base my design off of, because it's something I've already done, so why not continue with it? We've obviously also got essentially a double height space in here, but there is a noticeable indent from the floor above, so that's something that can be played with. Alright, so with a old whiteboard in hand and a pen that can't write to save its life, it's practically ineligible. Illegible, guys. I meant illegible. I here have got a list of every remaining interior that I would like to put into Hogwarts. Now, not all of them will probably be able to make it. However, we would like to see as many as we can. I'll go through from the top, and I'll walk you through my thinking for not only what will go in the viaduct entrance, but for future videos, what I'm planning to put elsewhere. First up, we have the Philosopher's Stone challenges. Now, we already have the Chamber of Secrets in this mock, and that turned out pretty great. I would love to do something with the first year tasks. That would require quite a lot of space, because there's quite a number of rooms. We have Fluffy, we have Room of the Winged Keys, we have the chessboard, we have technically a scene that wasn't in the movie, the potions room, and then of course we have the final scene with the Mirror of Erised. That will require a lot of space, either horizontally or vertically. That is something currently I'm thinking will go in the astronomy tower, but I will not touch on any more of that for this video. Next up, we have the Ravenclaw and Gryffindor common rooms. Now, of course, those have to be included. We've already put Slytherin and Hufflepuff, so we've got to finish the pack. Dumbledore's office, I've already decided on where that's going. Right up here, and that's only because in one of my older versions of Hogwarts from several years ago, I did make a Dumbledore's office in there, and it turned out quite nice. And with the vertical space in the roof, not that you'll be able to see into it, I will try to use it to some effect. And if not, it's kind of cool. Anyhow, we have Charms and Divination. If anything were to be jumped off this list, it would probably be them, because as much as we love a variety of classrooms, they do get a little bit redundant. We already have Transfiguration down in here, and up in the long gallery we have the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. This top section here actually is completely unused space. The only reason why I don't currently have something is because the window goes quite high up into the space where I can't put a floor, but hopefully we'll be able to work something out and put a room up there, potentially Divination, just because it's a little bit more interesting than Charms. Last up on this list, we have the room of requirement, the hospital wing, and the bathroom. As we previously stated, the bathroom is off the list for the viaduct entrance. We have hospital wing and room of requirement. Hospital wing is not exactly the most exciting thing to go in a space this big. In my mind, that leaves me with two options. I either have the room of requirement or the Gryffindor common room. Let me explain. So for those of you who've been watching the channel for a while, you will know that this building has got some interiors in it. And frankly, it's been so long that I completely forgot what was in them until I just took a look. This floor here in the middle does not have a way to lift off the roof, and that's only because the detailing is a little bit too complicated to tile off and make it modular. So instead, I made the wall hinge open. And this, in here, is the bathroom from the Chamber of Secrets that opens. Wait, that's just my hand, but don't worry, we can cut. That opens and would eventually go down to the Chamber of Secrets. Now I know the lighting is absolutely terrible and some of you cannot see anything in here, but this is basically stolen from the set, and if I can get some good lighting in there, there we go. You guys can see what it looks like. We've got one stall, and we've got the bit of the bathroom that lifts up so that you can go down to the Chamber of Secrets. This is a pretty neat interior because it's just such a small space, and it takes off a box. I was able to use bits from the set. So there we have a bathroom. In the remaining space, however, we have something a little bit more interesting. This here is the room of requirement from the 5th book, or the Order of the Phoenix, where they are doing basically the Dumbledore's Army illegal stuff, and they are doing their Patronus charms. This was also basically based on the Lego set, and I modified it to fit this space. It's just one of those circumstances of this building has absolutely no windows or anything, and it would have otherwise just been a filler section of the building that comes up above the roof, so I decided to use it for something. It is a room of requirement. However, obviously I did just say that I had thought that I was going to do parts of the viaduct entrance as a room of requirement. Now this I was thinking of more the Deathly Hallows version, where it's the room of hidden things, where it's just endless halls of books and miscellaneous objects, and that's something I could use the grandeur of the space to sort of convey, and we could light it all on fire. And there's that sort of newer set that basically makes the fiend fire beasts, so that could be quite cool. But because I already have that, there's not a huge reason why I need 2 room of requirements. But because that top floor is going to be Dumbledore's office and the astronomy tower has nothing to do with the Gryffindor common room, that kind of leaves us with 1 room to work with. Now you would argue that the Gryffindor common room has no place being on the ground floor and basically taking up what is essentially an entrance into the castle. Yes, that's true, but I'm kind of pressed for places to put it because we've already got interiors there in albeit quite small spaces, and the top floor is already dedicated to Dumbledore's office. That's fine. The bell towers, unfortunately, are not really big enough to have any sizable interiors. I'm planning on doing mostly offices and just sort of side character style rooms in there. Anything that can really just squeeze into a space that's essentially 8 by 8. And the astronomy tower, like I've already said, is going to be dedicated to the Philosopher's Stone. So here's my main thinking. Despite us having a main entrance right there and also a side entrance right here, we're dealing with a double height space here and some really nice windows. With this bit, I'm thinking that I could figure out a way in order to put the dorms on this top level over here and have the main common room down here. It would have to require quite a bit of taking apart of this building, but the idea is that this really becomes a super engaging space where you can see both the dorms and the common rooms. Now this is going to take quite a lot of trial and error because frankly I'm dealing with a space that doesn't proportionally match the Gryffindor common room at all. But we're going to take a look at this. This is obviously the inspiration. This is Hogwarts Legacy. They've got the 4 common rooms. 2 of them, this page over here, are done. We've obviously got the Ravenclaw common room, and we're working on the Gryffindor common room right now. So, some main features of the Gryffindor common room is, of course, the huge roaring fire, tapestries on the wall, lots of plush armchairs, and right in the back over there, you can see the balcony that overlooks the main space, and that's the access to the dorms. So the roof is gone just for the moment so we can get a better look of this space in here. We obviously also have these wings off to the side, but like I said earlier, we are not dealing with an overly big space. In fact, we only have 6 studs on either side. I would love to be able to use them in some way, but it is quite a tricky situation. The main thing for me is I want to be able to spend my resources and pieces on the areas that you can actually see. And I don't want to fiddle with reworking the walls and having things flap open and stuff, even though I might have just said that a few minutes ago. And that's mainly because I did all the work to make this building completely removable from the mock. It would be kind of counterproductive to not use this huge shaped opening as the main view into the common room. And I think there's a point at which you basically have to say, use what you have and make it look good. So that basically means that anything off to the sides you won't be able to see, but maybe we can hint at the fact that there's a staircase. Perhaps we could tuck those in there, but we have the few bottom steps sticking out into this main space, indicating that the stairwell goes up there. That could potentially mean that up here we could have that balcony, and we know that you can get up there from the stairs even if you couldn't quite see them just by looking in this direction. If I have the balcony there, and obviously this is the main space, there's then the question of where do the dorms go, because if I have the dorms starting at this level, you won't be able to see the balcony. So there is going to be quite a lot of reworking and rejigging around. There is also the thought that despite having all this space, vertical height for the main common room, I don't need to section off the rooms as that's a floor level and that's a floor level down here. That is a very big space in Lego compared to the size of this mock for the Gryffindor common room in the main area. I could think about putting the balcony level just above the doorway right here, so maybe about 6-7 bricks high, and then there's a further staircase that goes up the dorm. So there are potentials here that we can work with. We're going to try everything and we're going to make it work. So let's tear this thing apart and let's get started. So first things first, we removed not only the roof but also pretty much half of the upper floor. It's right here in just one piece, which is pretty useful. 2 turrets right there. That's just so that we can get a little bit better of a view inside as we're working, and you guys will be able to understand what I'm talking about without me having to get into weird angles like this. Now, first up is I was experimenting with how I might be able to do that sort of balcony level of the Gryffindor common room, because that's something I really want to include. Now, I think I mentioned, and of course this was a few days ago for me, that I was going to do 2 staircases and maybe like a balcony at the back, but I believe I also said that that might not work because you wouldn't see it based on having an upper floor. So I was experimenting with putting it over here on the side. It would just go over that doorway right there, and then a fireplace would probably go up on this wall. Now this is kind of working. The only problem is when I put this other floor back on top, sort of, we'll fix that. When I put the other floor back on top, you guys can see what that back staircase is looking like. Now, technically it's Lego, so it doesn't matter, but that doesn't really look right because you'd probably knock your head if you were to walk up those stairs. Not really feasible. So then obviously the space that we're dealing with for the dormitory is up here. It's just this space over here, which is about, well, the internal is about 8 bricks wide. Not that big to deal with. So all we need to do is find a way to get the staircase up to here. That's all that matters. Now, I think it definitely needs to be somewhere back here because putting it here at the front is just going to block any view that we have into the dormitory itself. So we're going to have to fiddle around with the arrangement over here so that we can get a door essentially right there. Now, something I've also been thinking about in the last few days is that I might actually wall off the dormitory right here. And the big downside, of course, is that you don't see this pretty cool inside view of all the windows that make up this really cool facade. But I also think it doesn't make much sense. That doorway needs to lead to something, and if it could lead potentially into a hallway that wasn't the Gryffindor common room, and then I were to put a secondary door here that was the fat lady, then things would start to suddenly make a little bit more sense, so that hopefully if you were to open this door, and that would be your only viewpoint into this building, that you'd be able to see right in and potentially see a bit of the fat lady's portrait, and that's just an indication that there's a Gryffindor common room, and then all of a sudden this makes a lot of sense. Now right here I've gathered pretty much anything and everything that I could find that might be useful specifically for the Gryffindor common room. So we've got bits from old sets like the bunk beds, Sirius's face in the fire, a bunch of portraits and anything we could find. I did come across the fact that I actually have Godric Gryffindor, which is pretty cool, so we're gonna have to place that somewhere. We also have Salazar Slytherin, which I should have put in the Slytherin common room, of course, but we might throw it just to have a funny in the Gryffindor common room. This is from one of the original 2000 and 2001 sets. This is actually the drapes that went over one of the dormitory beds, but I was thinking it might look quite cool if I were to hang it on the wall in some sort, act as sort of the tapestries, because that's something that the Gryffindor common room is, of course, very iconic for, is having basically carpeted walls, and it just makes it all feel a little bit homey. But in any case, just a decent assortment of pieces here that I'm going to use to bring this scene to life. First steps, of course, is we're going to rearrange this staircase balcony section until I can figure out a layout that actually works, and then we're going to obviously continue and build the common room. Alright, so we've migrated to the armchair because I've ran out of space to build here, and there's a mock on the table. This, I'm working on the upper level here of the dormitory, and I've replaced essentially what was initially just open space here. These were always there, but I've changed this out and just put some plates, and that means now I have a dormitory. It is rather small, but I have gone ahead and put a doorway at the end right there just to frame it. I think I will just go ahead and use these beds, not as a bunk bed variant. I'll split them and have two because it is a very small room, but I will just demonstrate very quickly what that looks like. One bed here and one bed there. This is basically what we're dealing with. This is the space, and then I'm going to try to put some sort of semblance of that little fire pit that they have in the dormitory. Obviously it is a round room, this is rectangular, and this is nowhere near the right size, but as much as I can I'm going to try to jam pack it with a bunch of details, because this is the view you're going to get into there. Now what I have done is initially the archway was right here, which is quite low, and I've been able to raise it up by basically building it into the roof. So this is the angle that we have looking into here. Is pretty solid. As for the main space, I've gone ahead and moved the staircase, but I'm struggling with figuring out how to cover up, or how to essentially build a wall behind it. And that's mainly because this is the extent of my bricks. 10 bricks. This is everything I have left. And as you can see, it's most of the crap ones. So I don't really have any big panel pieces. I don't have many bricks left. So I'm trying to figure out a way to effectively cover up this back wall. I did think about initially using this and covering that and essentially building around it and leaving gaps where it wouldn't be, but I thought that wasn't the best idea. So what I have gone and done is stolen a bunch of these little builds from these book pieces, these book sets, whatever you have. This is the Charms one, and there's Herbology, Transfiguration, and such. They all have these little kind of bookshelf things, pieces like this as well. So I'm going to use those to try to fill in the gaps, and because it's right at the back and there's things going to be going on in front, Hopefully it's going to be just enough detail to fill it up, make it look like it's lined with bookshelves, portraits, such things, and you won't really notice that there isn't much of a wall there. So there we go. And just a few minutes later, we have a finished Gryffindor dormitory. Being honest, didn't take much work, and that's only because I only had such a small space to deal with. Went ahead and tiled off the floor, just simply built the beds up slightly on some wooden frames, if you will, and each of the beds have got their own little stool, Hedwig there with a trophy, and, well, technically this would be Ron's, but it is an anonymous owl with a remembrall. We've got a portrait on the wall as well, but of course this is the angle that you're looking at it from, so the main idea is I'm just trying to reflect that it is the common room, or sorry, that is the dormitory, rather than making it as realistic as possible, because we are dealing with a space that is of course nothing like the movies, the books, the game. It's a rectangle and it's the viaduct entrance, so I'm just trying to make it fit in the space, and I think this does a pretty good job. This is what it looks like when it's back on top, pretty haphazardly. So we have that bit right there, and of course this area is still all empty, but we do have stairs, and while unrealistic, they do technically go up to the door, even though you'd have to sort of jump to actually make it through the doorway here, but that's alright. Lego always finds a way. So, back to the actual common room itself. Some of you might already notice that that is indeed not the fat lady, and that means it's not the right portrait for entering the Gryffindor common room. Bit of a backstory here, I don't have the fat lady, but I should. This piece right here belongs to the 2004 Hogwarts castle, and I bought this used on Bricklink about 5-6 years ago when me and my family got into the mood of hunting down all of the original Harry Potter sets in an effort just to collect them all. And this one came without the sticker on it, which I was really bummed about at the time, but I didn't think too much of it because I wasn't really concerned. But now it comes to building a Gryffindor common room, and I'm kind of stuck. So I would really like that piece, but this is what I have. So instead, that's a placeholder, and in the event that I can find one, I believe the original 2001 castle has one of these pieces in it, and I do have that set, but it's not with me right here. So if I find that in the future, I will put it, and if not, there's going to be a mermaid, and we'll just call this before the fat lady was installed at Hogwarts, because Hogwarts Legacy is from the 1800s. The staircase obviously has been moved around, but not from the last clip, just from the original layout where we had it here on the wall. And obviously the stair doesn't lead to anywhere, because when we put the dormitory up, oh, it falls over, but you know, it would just go in behind there, so it doesn't really matter too much. Now we have to figure out what to do with the rest of the space. Alrighty, so it's getting a bit dark, so the lights have had to have been turned on. But here is the progress we've been making so far. I think the glow from the lamp right beside me is really making those candles pop out a bit. As you can see, the main thing I've done is this fireplace right here. Very simple build. In fact, I am honestly quite struggling with trying to make an intricate interior with such limited amount of parts. You know, it's getting towards the end of building Hogwarts, and that frankly just leaves me with very little pieces to build interesting things. I just have quite basic pieces. You know, this is my tan drawer, and that's what I'm working with right now. So I think a fireplace looks alright. We've got the little Gryffindor banner. That came from initially this little build, which is from the 2010 Hogwarts castle. And I was going to initially put it, just save myself some parts, but I didn't think it fit in with basically the vibe that I had going on throughout the rest of the castle. So even though the dark can slopes don't technically match, I think they look pretty good. Gryffindor banner, of course, another one there on the wall, and some little trinkets here and there. I'm just trying to fill up the walls with some stuff. This wall is going to be the most exposed, so it's going to be plastered with anything and everything Gryffindor related. We're going to see if I can find one of the older banners to hang on the wall. And then right here in the middle, you can see, well, like I said, very low on pieces, but I found something to make it kind of look like there's an armchair. So that's my first attempt. It's a placeholder for now. I'm going to try to build a second one. I'm going to make a little rug right here in front of the fireplace. and tile off the rest of this floor, and that's pretty much going to be what the Gryffindor common room ends up looking like. And then we're going to focus a little bit on the balcony back there, giving it a little bit of detail, just because if there's anything I have a lot of pieces of right now, it's brown, so I'm going to incorporate as much of that as possible into this space. Okay, so we're about half an hour later, because I took an infinite amount of time figuring out this staircase over here, but we've been slowly adding a little bit of detail, making a little railing, trying to figure out what to do with this back wall. Obviously I don't have the bricks to just make it tan, so I'm trying to include a little bookcase there, covering up a lot of the wall with this sort of, I wouldn't call it tile, but you know, a modified plate that has all these things on it, so it kind of looks like a bulletin board. It's quite cool. I did run into a slight problem right here with the stairs. I was putting the second half of the roof up, kind of like that. But it wasn't working originally, and that's just because I'll come down here and you can see where the step is, or the stair is. Ooh, if we can get that focus, you can see where the stair is in comparison to where the doorway is. And what was happening exactly is, because I had the door on the outside, well, it just wasn't being able to attach on because the stair was in the way, simply speaking. So I tried to flip it, but the only problem with that is because I've tiled the floor. If any of you guys have played around with these doors before, you will know that you can't put tiles underneath them because it doesn't line up with the bricks. That means you'd have to raise this by one plate in order to put tiles underneath it, and there's a little bit of a gap. And I couldn't raise this by one plate because the arch goes immediately above it. So I started fishing about, and I came across this older door, which is the exact same shape pretty much. If it will even focus. Okay, it won't. It's the same shape. There we go. But you can see that the hinge is slightly different. This is obviously a clip, whereas that is an older part. It's from the 2001 Room of the Winged Keys set. And now the door doesn't actually fully open because I have that stool in the way. But it gives the impression that it opens, and it means that the stair is no longer being blocked. And I realize the lighting isn't great, but here is a better angle of this staircase over here. You can just see how I tiled off a little bit of the stairs. And what I've had to do here is, because the stairs line up exactly with, going out of focus here, because the stairs line up exactly with the edge of this wall, I actually had to put the wall for this one brick behind, but of course it's not supported by anything, so I've just had to put a 2 by something plate just to extend it out one, and I'll have to compensate for the height difference by adding a few plates at the end. But that now means that I can have a wall, and technically there's going to be a little bit of a gap there that will let light through, but because I'm short on pieces, I'm not going to worry about that, and I very much doubt that from this angle you will be able to see that or care for that at all. And in playing around with this stair, I've dropped it, I've broken it. And that's really annoying. Reddish brown, more and more so as I build this MOC, is proving to be one of the most difficult parts or colors to work with. It breaks so easily. Okay, so here is our competitive lineup of portraits and banners to be hung up on this wall. I did go ahead and put the candelabra on top of whatever you might want to call that thing, because I really want to put it somewhere, and as of yet I've had no room to put it in, and this is the only one that you're looking at it like this. So we've got a decent amount of space here. We might use all of these, but if it looks too crowded, maybe not, and we'll save some of them for the Ravenclaw common room. Let's throw them up on the wall, finish up that back wall over there. So the banner is up, and as is a huge fire hazard candelabra right next to the banner, but that's okay. And so it's just a few minifigures. This is suddenly seeming a lot more like the Gryffindor common room, and given that we're dealing with a space that is really not supposed to be for the Gryffindor common room, and the fact that we essentially just made up a layout for it, I think this has turned out great. I didn't actually put too many of the portraits up on the wall. I only put 2 of the, I think 5 or 6, because I thought it was looking a little bit too busy. I think this works perfectly. The red Gryffindor banner is definitely selling it. I mean, it's quite simple furnishings, but it works, and of course that isn't the fat lady there in the back. It is a mermaid, but I'm happy with it, and I'm not going to pay too much attention to it. I think it looks good. We've got Sir Nicholas flying there right in the back. So this is just a quick look at what this ground floor area looks like before we go ahead and put the dormitory back on top, and we'll get a little bit more of a finished view and just finish off a little bit more of the detailing, make sure everything is secure. So here's the dormitory back on top. We just got a little scene here of Harry and Ron getting ready for the Yule Ball. This is now what the Gryffindor common room looks like. You can see how I separated out these two arches now. So we have the top one and the bottom one. This kind of frames this entrance and even makes it look a little bit more homey and moody with the fact that there's not just light pouring in. And hopefully the camera will be able to catch this. But out there in the back with the stairs going up, I think it's quite cool how it almost looks like you're going up to an attic by putting reddish brown as the wall instead of tan. I think instead of just looking like the stone castle, it looks like an internal wall, which I suppose in effect it is, but it looks pretty neat. And the only thing that I'm missing currently is that this side of the building is missing these sort of mini arches, or whatever you want to call them, that sort of finish off this edge as a railing. And that's mainly just because I can't find the pieces. I'm going to scavenge around now and try to do that, because for the longest time they've been missing, but it would be nice to just finish this off. So I'll try to find those. If I don't, oh well. We'll slap the roof on and put everything back together, take one last look at the viaduct entrance and the Gryffindor common room. So I never did quite manage to find all the parts to finish this off. So there's a few of those pieces in there, but the rest are just random bricks. Hopefully one day I will come across all the extra bits, or I will have to buckle down and actually purchase them off of Bricklink. But of course, with the roof on, this is what the Gryffindor common room is now looking like. Here's a view of what you will see of the dormitory. Obviously it's not much, and because the roof is completely opaque, you can't actually see anything inside. It's just way too dark, and it doesn't help. The minifigures are right in front, but the larger space, of course, is the Gryffindor common room. And boy, did it turn out really, really good. We're going to give you one last sort of tour. On this wall over here, we have the fireplace, as well as just a few portraits, some banners. There is some bottles of whatnot there, candles on top of the fireplace. Of course, the mermaid portrait of the Gryffindor common room, the famous mermaid portrait. And on this wall, we just have a small little table, candelabra, some banners, and we have the staircase that leads up to the top, to the dormitories, bulletin board, and some bookshelves. And just like that, we have got the Gryffindor common room. And of course, to finish it all off, we have the viaduct entrance back in place as if nothing has changed at all, because from the outside it hasn't. And here's a little bit of a look at the mess that I can't help myself from creating whenever I get to building. That's where I was faithfully doing the viaduct entrance. But now it's done. The Gryffindor common room is 100% complete. The viaduct entrance has now got an interior. There's a functioning door that doesn't lead to much, but it can open. And there we have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to make, and I'm really happy with how the Gryffindor common room turned out. It was something that I wasn't really expecting to look as good as it did, but hey, sometimes you get lucky. Well, if you guys did like this episode, I would really appreciate it if you would leave this video a like, maybe give this channel a sub, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys!